Well, hey everybody. All right. Good morning to some parts of the world. So, I was trying to rethink some things that we talked about a couple days ago. So, let's see. One of the things, and I know I've talked about it, but it really is vital, is knowing the problem and really understanding the problem that you have, because that is absolutely vital. But we can kind of go ahead and wait and see when anybody shows. Just kind of drop in chat when you get here. Probably one thing we're going to talk about a lot is documentation. My goodness, I don't think I see anybody. And if you're just jumping on, please go ahead and jump in chat. And, I need to check over on Discord. Let me do that right now. I don't know why Discord is so challenging and doesn't want to move. I have more trouble with that hanging up. No, I don't have as much problem. Sorry about that. Thought I muted my phone. I'll do that right now. All right. Has anybody dropped anything down in chat that they're here? All right. Let's just... So documentation. Documentation is very, very important to get comfortable with. I remember very early on in my learnings, I remember reading people saying that, oh my gosh, I just love reading documentation. And I'm like, oh my God, how can they sit and just look at documentation like that? Well, guess what? I like reading documentation now. So basically, if you think about it, it's like the rule book or the instructions of how to use a library. So it's like a souped up doc string if you really, really think about that. But all right, we can hang out here for a little while, but if nobody comes, then we may drop. But yeah, I'm nursing a bum knee, so I was gonna be off from work this week to work on some side projects and things, but that hasn't happened. So, all right, let's kind of think and talk about, as people are coming back to school and starting school, at least around here in the United States. And they're going to be jumping into, it's fall semester, so they're going to be jumping into programming class. And it's new and exciting until there's an old saying, everybody has a plan until they get hit in the mouth. It's a Mike Tyson quote. I don't know if anybody likes that, but that sums up life pretty well. And the same thing with any sort of contention of am I sitting up enough? Let's see. All right. Okay. So everybody wants to learn programming and start off the fall semester, and everybody's excited until you hit a problem that you have. So one of the things that's very important is understanding how to, well, one, figure out the long form of the problem, and then literally begin to convert it over to Python. So I would always draw it out. So I know I've talked about the 9 dots. I literally tried to do the 9 dots until I figured out that I had a nice pattern. And the reason why I use that a lot is I don't know if you've ever seen those little robots that they have for kids. And I set up the instructions, and I actually made a little path for them to use. And I had them teach these robots and use I think it was Blockly, but it was for loops and instructions, and you could just stack them on top of each other. But it was the same principle. The set of instructions to achieve your goal. That's all a program or an algorithm is. So the 9 dots needs to be repeatable until you find a way. And I think then another example is the stadium seating. How is your human brain deciding? Same thing when you get into rows and columns for a data set, a database, an Excel sheet. So how would you manually make your decisions? What are you looking at to make the decision? How did you know to look at that one? I mean, it's like, how did you pick that row? Oh, well, it had a 1 and it had a something greater than 50. Bingo. So those are your instructions. I want to see every row that has a 1 in this column and in this column is greater than 50. So you've just created a miniature algorithm to decide how to filter rows. So those things that you take and you can't, it's very similar. I've been out and about or laying a lot, so I've had a lot of time to think. If you haven't heard of the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, the instructions for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich exercise, it is very important. And the reason why it's important is its attention to detail. So what the exercise is try to make the instructions to build a peanut butter and jelly sandwich as detailed as possible for somebody who has no concept of how to do it. So it's like, get bread. Then the person doing the exercise is supposed to not understand anything. So they get the bread, the loaf of bread. They have the bread in front of them. Then get the peanut butter. Grab the jar of peanut butter. Put the peanut butter on the bread. So then they take the jar of peanut butter and put it on top of the bread. And most of the time the person goes, no, not like that. Well, that's exactly what you told them to do. Okay, did you mean grab the loaf of bread, untie the twist tie, remove 2 slices of bread, place 2 slices of bread down on a paper towel, remove the lid from the peanut butter, use a utensil to spoon out a scoop of peanut butter, smearing peanut butter on one side of the bread, and so on. So the more detailed and specific and direct the algorithm is, the more likely it's going to function properly. So one of my perfect examples of this is when a young kid that I'm working with does something and they go, okay, and it goes for I in range for print. This is my favorite, print 4. they get a little confused on this, and they say, this is wrong. It didn't do right. I want you to really think about that. Is the program going to do wrong? Or is it going to do exactly what you did and your instructions were poor? That's it. So the exercise was supposed to be this. Now I'm able to, now I get the results that I'm expecting. But the attention to detail. So that's one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about, is make sure, and also here's a very vital piece, only change one line of code at a time. Because if you try to go in and you're changing 2 and 3 and 4 things, or writing an entire script, 99% of the time that script is going to fail, and if you have multiple lines, you have no idea where it's failing. So make sure you're writing one thing at a time. So if I were going to do this, then inside of this, I wanted this to happen. For j in range I, then print, oh, that's supposed to be j. See? Print j. So I want you to think about this. What is this going to do? This is a perfect example of how to have a set of instructions where I'm incrementing up. And we can go up here just to kind of see this. Let's go up to 6. So I'm going to have 0 repeated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So there we go. So one of the other examples of understanding the difference between a while loop and a for loop. So I was thinking about this. When to use a for loop. So what is a for loop? I mean, a for loop goes through iterates through an object. I don't know if we've actually ever looked at this. So this creates an object of a grouping of numbers. So when we have let's just say x, this is a container, this is an object that can be iterated through. Or then we have this right here. This is my favorite. So let's look at this. So let's say we need a quick number set. So we had our range, right? Well, then I can wrap this. This is what I love about Python, is that this is completely legal. So now I have a list of numbers, just boom, just like that. So now I go here and I go Y. So now I have a list that then I can iterate through this, I can iterate through this, and I can iterate through this. Now, a while loop, it's do something until something changes, or do something until this happens. So if you're just checking something until I get done checking it, that's basically always going to be a for loop. But if I'm doing something and I'm waiting on something to happen, meaning something's going to change, then that's probably going to be a while loop. But there are times where you need to iterate through. I think during one of our examples of the chicken nugget, you could do the while loop on top of the for loops, because you were constantly changing your for loops. So that's one example. All right, anything that I've gone over so far that anybody has a question about? Okay, we'll probably just go a few more minutes because I think we've only had a few people drop in and out. But all right. So let's see. For loops and while loops. I was thinking about something else to go over. I really like the stadium seating. Oh, one of the last algorithms that I wrote that I thought was very, very cool was, and I think I did a video on it, but I don't think anybody really cared for it. But it was the last month. So the algorithm that I came up with was, and this is a perfect example of a real life example. In the database, there was no last month column. You could not query last month and get that column. So you couldn't do a max on last month. It wasn't a concatenated version between the year and the month, which would have been handy. But so what I had to do was I had to derive a way to find the, let's comment this all out. Find the max year. Then, this is a perfect example, and I've already done a video on this. But how did I decide? How was I doing it by my human brain? Well, I went and looked for the largest month. Well, did I? Because if it's a database and I looked for the largest month, I would always find December. Because if it was multiple years, you would always find December being the highest month. Well, no, actually, I was looking at the most current year, so that max year. Then inside of that, I was finding the max month. Well, thank goodness that I had the example that it was in February of this year that I wrote this, and I was having to go back to December because it was January. So there was a caveat, there was a condition that I needed to write. So I was fortunate, because I'm not that smart, but I can solve problems. So thank goodness that it was January that I then had to write an algorithm for if the max month, if the max month, was equal to 1, then I had to set it to 12 and then set the year to max year minus 1. So why did I have to do it that way? Well, if the max month and the max year was 1, then I needed to go back to the previous month, which was December. But then I had to roll back the max year 1. So but any other example, any other time, it was just max month minus 1. So, all right. I know we just have a couple folks watching right now. Any questions we want to go over, because I don't know, I guess the way that I'm sitting right now is not very comfortable on my knee. I thought I iced it enough this morning, but I guess I did not. So any questions? So what I also want you to really think about and look at is that I want you to become very comfortable of finding and reading documentation. I can't say that enough, because once you get, after you watch my videos for a little while and I begin to show you how to problem solve, you're gonna, well, good for you, bad for me. You're going to stop watching my videos and you're going to learn to go out and start searching and reading and looking at the documentation yourself and providing these things for yourself and looking how to do them. So the next, I thought I was going to already film it this morning, but like I said, I'm running a little bit late. But I'm going to be filming Monday's video this morning, and it's going to be how to look and create row numbers. Did somebody? Oh no, that's another channel. Sorry, I thought somebody posted a question in Discord. No. Okay. All right. So there we go. We only have a couple people. Any questions before we drop? I know it says we only have 2 on. But if you are here right now, thanks for joining us. Just kind of wanted to be here, and if there was if there were any solutions or any problems everybody was trying to solve, and they were just kind of stuck. That was kind of the hopes of the streams of this week, and I had actually hoped to do it every day, but my mobility and the stiffness was a little bit more than I was expecting. But yeah, I just can't say enough of make sure the peanut butter and jelly sandwich is a perfect example. Make sure you truly understand how you're making the decisions with your human brain, and then just convert those instructions. It's like, well, I found this year. I went, oh, I need to look at December of last year. Well, wait a second. Okay. How did you come up with those instructions? Okay, well, it's January. I can't take, because actually what I literally did is I took January and I -1. And my query threw up all over the place, because guess what? There is no month 0. And I was like, why am I getting 0 results? Because I just had them for this month, and all I'm doing is subtracting. Well, then bug testing. Let's talk about that for a minute. Bug testing is vital, and fighting against and preparing for when a user will do things wrong. Okay. Defensive programming. If you know it can be misused, it will be misused. So you need to really understand human nature and how a person thinks. A person is going to choose make the easiest choice on them, always. That's just human nature. So you have to then make it as easy as possible, as user friendly as possible, as easily explained, over explain it, and things like that. So what I did is I isolated. So I knew it was working, and then I changed one thing, and then it wasn't working. So what I did is I made my output. So I had a join. So what I did is I went back a step. Okay, well, what are the answers that I'm getting right here? And why am I getting them? Well, then I was getting my year and month column that I was joining and filtering back. I was getting the result of this year. So I was getting 2023 for the year, and month, my month column was 0. I'm like, month column 0? What am I? So I was the kid. It's like, it's coming out wrong. How am I getting month 0? Well, because max month -1. It was doing exactly like I was instructing it to do. And then that's when it dawned on me that I was going to need to do this. So understanding the problem, testing your own solution. You have to be very humble. That's one thing that I've probably achieved in the past 6 months, a year. Humility. You're going to be wrong. Be comfortable with being wrong, and learn from it. Let me just say that again. You're going to be wrong. Get comfortable with being wrong, and be humble about it. Because the way that I look at it is, when I was wrong about this, I got a whole lot smarter. And it was very fortuitous because I didn't have somebody show up 11 months later when it didn't work and say it's broken, and then me have to go back and try to figure out why it wasn't working. I was very, very fortunate that it happened at the beginning of the year, and I could diagnose it and figure it out. So, all right, we've been going for about 25 minutes. Any questions? Please drop any questions if you have any, because it probably won't do any live streaming for a while, just because the way life is right now, and a little bit busy. So, all right, for those of you who came by, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and energy, because that's one thing we have a finite amount of, and I'm learning that as well and getting more patient about that. But just wanted to share these thoughts. Work on some for loop and while loop experiments. Just some subtle differences between the two. The while loop is a good example of like a countdown clock. A for loop, iterating through, and I mean, there's all kinds of techniques. You can enumerate through an iterable object like this. You can do a side by side where you are, because you can go through the numbers, or you can index through them. There's just so many ways to skin a cat with this, and the more techniques that you have of how to iterate through an object, is the more skilled you are, the more powerful you'll become with this, and the easier the solutions will come to you, because you just have more tools in your toolbox, and you're like, oh, well, I know how I would attack that. And also, one of the last things that I can't say enough is start looking at problems that you see out in the real world and go, how would I program for that? How would I write something to make that decision? How would I make a decision matrix on that? Because if this is something you truly want to do, you're going to have to do that anyway. So start doing it and start noticing it before you have to do it, because if you start doing it naturally, it will just come to you when you're asked to automate something. And all that is, hey, I need you to write something to have this do this. And you're going to go, what? And it's going to be scary the first few times. And for me, it was scary for about, it was probably 8-9 months. And I was and one of the other program managers, actually it's the one I'm with now, it was he just like, oh, I don't know how to do it, but I'll get it. And I was just like, how does he do that? And it's just repetition, and it's at bats. It's well, I know I'm going to do it. Well, I'm beginning to feel the same way. It's still scary when I first get asked, but after a while, and after it starts to set in, it's like, okay, well, I mean, there's a solution for it. I just got to find one that works, because there's typically always a solution. So, all right. We've had, a couple more join. Any questions before we drop? Hey, it's like, hey, I'm really trying to figure this out. I'm stuck. I don't know where to start. It's not like you're trying things and you have a couple of guesses. Is there anything anybody's working on, a problem they're trying to solve, that they are just stuck and they don't even know where to begin? Okay. I think I've rambled enough today, but thank you all for joining. For those of you who did, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your time, and we will just sign off now. But if you've not joined the Discord, please join the Discord. If you've not subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell. We have videos coming out once a week with things that I'm working on, the things I've done, things I've solved recently, or things that I think are important for you to learn. So There we go, guys. Thank you as always for watching, and we will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.